The sound of shattering crystal echoed across my kitchen. Jessica's champagne glass slipped from her fingers the very moment her mother collapsed. Helen, my daughter-in-law's mother, was convulsing violently on the marble floor, foam bubbling at her lips. Guests screamed, chairs scraped, and my son Michael rushed forward in shock. But me? I stood still, because in my mind, one thought circled like a hawk. That wasn't supposed to happen to her. That drink was meant for me. Before I tell you how I reached this moment, let me make something clear. I am 70 years old. I didn't survive the cutthroat world of corporate consulting by being blind or foolish. When someone tries to poison you at your own retirement party, you notice. Especially when the person pouring the glass has been eyeing your fortune like a starving wolf. Only 2 hours earlier, this same kitchen was filled with music, laughter, and toasts. I had just signed the papers that ended my career and filled my accounts with $23 million. Not bad for a company I built from scratch after my husband died 15 years ago. "Mom, you deserve to celebrate," Michael had said warmly. His brown eyes, always too sincere, had worked overtime that day. "Let Jessica handle everything. You just relax." Those words should have set off alarms in my head. Jessica, who groaned about loading a dishwasher, suddenly volunteered to host a flawless party. Flowers everywhere, candles lit, crystal polished to a shine. She floated through the house like the perfect hostess. But her eyes? Nervous, watchful, calculating. I watched her glide toward the champagne table. With a quick glance around the room, she pulled a tiny vial from her designer purse and tipped the contents into one specific glass. My favorite one, with the tiny chip on the rim. The one everyone knew was mine. My blood went cold, but I kept smiling at my business partner, nodding as though I cared about his lecture on market trends. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The best way to catch a snake is to let it believe it already has you. Jessica approached, her face glowing with false concern. "Sarah, you look tired," she cooed. "Here, you deserve a glass." I accepted it with a smile. I even thanked her, but I didn't drink. Minutes later, when she became distracted, flashing her new tennis bracelet to the neighbors, I quietly set my glass beside Helen's unattended purse. Helen, poor thing, picked it up without hesitation. Within minutes, she was complimenting the interesting flavor of the champagne. And 5 minutes after that, she collapsed at my feet. The party descended into chaos. "Call 911!" Jessica shrieked. Her performance was almost convincing. Her trembling hands, her tear-choked voice. Almost. But I've seen genuine terror before. And what Jessica was performing was panic for an audience, not grief for a mother. Michael pushed through the crowd, pale as chalk. "What happened?" he demanded, staring at Helen. But I noticed something subtle. A quick glance between him and Jessica, a flicker of silent communication. It lasted barely a heartbeat, but I caught it. The paramedics arrived swiftly, lifting Helen onto a stretcher. She was still breathing, thank God. But Jessica's tears were for show, and Michael's silence said more than words. "I'll follow to the hospital," I announced, grabbing my keys. Michael stepped in quickly. "Mom, you don't need to. We'll handle everything. You should stay home, rest, clean up after the party." How thoughtful, how convenient. "Keep me at the house, far from doctors, far from the truth." "Nonsense," I said firmly. "Helen is practically family." And before either of them could protest, I was already out the door. At St. Mary's Hospital, I lingered in the waiting area, close enough to overhear the medical team. "Acute poisoning," the doctor muttered. "Plant alkaloids, cause unknown. Plant alkaloids. Not food poisoning, not an allergy, poison." Jessica paced the room, her designer heels clicking against the linoleum like a ticking clock. Michael sat rigid, his phone buzzing with unanswered messages. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the floor. "This is just terrible," Jessica whispered. "For the 5th time. Poor Mom. I don't understand how this happened." I laid a hand gently on her shoulder. "These things are mysterious, dear. But you know, it's lucky she didn't drink more of that champagne. Just a few sips, really." Her step faltered. Her face drained a shade paler. "Champagne? You think the champagne did this?" "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing," I replied, waving it off with practiced innocence. Just an old woman's mind noticing patterns. But Jessica's trembling fingers as she reached for her coffee told me the truth. By dawn, Helen was stable but still sedated. The doctors were vague, insisting they'd know more after observation. Jessica tried to look relieved. Michael muttered about stress. But I had already seen too much. Back at home, I didn't sleep. I brewed coffee and spread my checkbook records across the kitchen table. I listed every penny I had ever given Michael and Jessica. The numbers sickened me. $200,000 over the last 5 years. A down payment for their house, private school tuition for Emma, countless emergencies. To me, they were gifts. To them, they must have looked like down payments on an inheritance. At 7:30 a.m., the phone rang. Jessica's voice poured syrup through the receiver. "Sarah, I couldn't sleep at all. After what happened, you didn't feel sick, did you?" How considerate, checking whether her poison had reached its true target. "No, dear. I'm perfectly fine," I replied lightly. "Have you heard more about Helen?" "The doctors think she probably ate something that disagreed with her," Jessica said too quickly. They were very clear it wasn't the food or drinks from the party. Interesting. So eager to shut down any suspicion. Almost as if she didn't want anyone to test the champagne bottle still, sitting on my counter. I hung up staring at that bottle. 3/4 full, its golden bubbles catching the morning light. I wondered what a laboratory test might reveal. The doorbell rang at 9. Michael stood there, holding pastries from my favorite bakery. The picture of the perfect son. "Thought you could use some breakfast," he said. He set the box down, moved through my kitchen like he had as a boy, opening cupboards, pouring coffee without asking. For a moment, I saw him again as the child who once brought me dandelions from the yard. But then his words shattered the memory. "Mom, Jessica and I have been talking about your situation." "My situation. You're 70, alone in this big house, with all that money from the sale. Yesterday proved how vulnerable you are. What if it had been you instead of Helen?" The audacity nearly stole my breath. Using their failed murder attempt as an argument for why I should give them control. Michael leaned forward, sincerity painted on his face. "Mom, we've researched some wonderful places. You'd have company, activities, medical staff. It's more like a resort than a retirement home." He slid his phone across the table. Photos of smiling seniors, swimming pools, golf courses, endless activities. The name, Sunset Manor. All inclusive, he added. $400,000 up front. But it covers housing, meals, care, everything. $400,000. A small bite out of $23 million. And once I was inside, who would hold power of attorney over the rest? Michael and Jessica. I forced a gentle smile. "It looks lovely. I'll think about it." Relief washed across his face. "Of course, no rush. Maybe we can visit next week." But I saw the gears turning in his head. Their plan wasn't just poison. It was legal entrapment. If they couldn't kill me, they'd label me unfit, push me into Sunset Manor, document signs of confusion, and seize guardianship over my estate. How convenient. How vile. After Michael left, I dialed my attorney, David Hartwell. He had handled every major decision in my life for 20 years. If anyone could protect me, it was him. I told him everything. The party, the poisoned glass, Jessica's trembling hands, Michael's pitch. David listened, silent but sharp. "You're certain of what you saw?" "As certain as I'm sitting in this chair." He tapped his pen. "Then we prepare. Poison is difficult to prove without testing. Even if we had the champagne, Jessica could claim she was adding something harmless. But the bigger danger isn't just murder, it's control. If they argue you're incompetent, they could petition for guardianship. Once they have that, they have everything." The words chilled me more than the poison had. "What do I do?" "We document your mental state now. Competency evaluations, clear records. Then we restructure your estate. Trusts, directives, audits. No one touches a dime without alarms going off. And Sarah," his voice dropped, "we strengthen your personal security. If they failed once, they will try again." I nodded, because I knew he was right. That night, I walked through my quiet house. My husband's old roses blooming outside the window. This home, this fortune, this life, everything I had fought for was now a target. But if Michael and Jessica thought I would hand it to them easily, they had forgotten who raised him. I didn't build an empire from nothing just to be undone by greed in my own family. And they were about to learn. I might be 70, but I am far from finished.